Good Sunday morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? This is the morning mouse chat, and we've got Gizzard Gary. How you doing, Gizzard?
I'm doing really well. Good morning, sir.
Guns Barbecue. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing. I'll say excellent. I'm doing excellent. So I will a PSA announcement. If you have a katana, be careful with it. I managed in an after chat. Gary's, I it's pretty much healed up, but I cut all the way across the palm of my hand. It only bled from a little part, but yeah. I knew that the habaki didn't fit the scabbard well. I think when I did the review on it, I even had mentioned that it was loose, but it didn't matter because, all I do is every now and again play with it, and yeah. So I have somewhat fixed it. I didn't fix it the proper way. It was to disassemble it and kind of shim the piece that's a little undersized. I just put a piece of tape in the scabbard, and that takes up enough space where it holds it. But that was my fault for not being careful. But so far out there is Ozzy Osbourne, Gizzard Gary, Sergeant Joe Smith, M. Gabriel. I think that's everybody. That might be everybody that's out there so far. But good morning to you. Oh. So on Barbecue's chat on Thursday nights at what time's your chat, Barbecue? He might have stepped away.
10 Eastern, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. your time.
He had what I think he might have stepped away, and you guys were talking about term limits.
Yes.
So I wanted to talk about term limits a little bit. What is your opinion on term limits, Gizzard?
I'm kind of ambivalent on term limits. I see why people want them. I also see in certain cases that individuals, especially from your state, if they happen to have tenure in their particular branch, can, get committee assignments and stuff like that that could be very advantageous, and it'd be a shame to lose those. So, there's advantages to having term limits, and there's possible disadvantages. So I'm kind of mixed when it comes to that.
If you're back, Barbecue, what about you? If he's not back, we've got the 2A Chef and Barbecue out there and New York Outcast. Good morning. I don't think I support term limits. The voter has the right to vote in whoever they want for however many times they want. I think I would more support like an age limit, but I don't really like the idea of a term limit. I don't know, what do you think about like an age limit, like a cutoff like 70 or something?
That might not be such a bad idea, but such things are arbitrary. Some people are still in fairly good shape at age 70 and some aren't. But how in the world would you gauge fitness for duty without some sort of limit? But, we have seen and still seeing people who at least apparently are not terribly mentally in good shape that are still able to keep their positions and stuff like that, and are probably not in the best shape to be making decisions and stuff like that. So um, might have to do it, unfortunately.
GWeb's gun website said term limits equal unelected staff becoming permanent, and they end up running things.
Not sure I understand.
Well, I think I kind of understand. I don't know if I completely agree. It's the idea of the bureaucracy always being the same people always being there in the background that aren't elected end up
Well,
gaining a lot of power because they've been there for so long.
I mean, the concept of a career politician, I mean, some people, that's what they choose to do, in their path of choice. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. It really wasn't what was designed for in our Constitution, if you're talking about on a national level, especially per se. But again, you're getting people who are experienced and can make connections to get things done. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I hate to use that. I hate to use that term, especially given what happened to you.
No, I mean, my situation was my own stupidity, but the GWeb said test of ability is better than general assumption about age. And I'm not saying there should be or shouldn't be age limits, but I would support an age limit before I would support term limits, I think. Yeah, that's, if somebody gives me a good argument to change my mind later, that I could change my mind later. Packeret's Attic is out there. Good morning. Oh, see, GWeb said, I had a question for GWebs. The parts of Arizona that don't observe daylight savings time. So they're permanently on standard time. If the nation changes to daylight savings time, will Arizona change or forever be different? If that made any sense.
I don't know. I think the concept is that any kind of national establishment of time like that, I believe the states have the option to opt out. And I presume that would probably still exist. I'm not sure why they would want to, but
GWeb said you can't make a rule that makes people act better. Ozzy said the staff usually does most of the work. The politicians are mostly talking heads. Joy Chef and Barbecue, the founders had term limits for Congresses, then return to your business in your state. For the time zone, GWeb said, I assume it would stay permanent once the rest of the country quits goofing around with their clocks. But which would they have? Would they stay on standard time? with the rest of the nation being on the daylight saving time, which would become basically the standard time? Or would they move their clocks to match the rest of the country? New York Outcast, I support term limits. Connections could be considered the problem. Reps shouldn't need to be nudged to do what the people asked. Yeah, Packard said it really depends on how the law is written, which I'm guessing that's the clock thing, and I probably confused everything because we're talking about two things at once, which is my fault. But so I also wanted to kind of talk about the ruling in Texas on the suppressors and SBRs. There's a lot of confusion where nobody really knows what this means, if it means anything. So let me share this. It's from the Silencer Central article, kind of talking about it, and we'll kind of go through some excerpts from it. But Texas federal court rules NFA regulations on suppressors and SBRs unconstitutional. The big news came out of Texas federal court this week. And if you own a suppressor or have been thinking about buying one, you're going to want to pay attention. On August 5th, 2026, a federal judge in Northern District, Texas, issued a major ruling challenging the continued application of the National Firearms Act to suppressors and short-barreled rifles and short-barrel shotguns. The court stayed the effect of its ruling for 7 days to give the federal government an opportunity to seek relief from the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Oh, the important distinction is Congress eliminated the tax, but left the NFA registration and regulatory requirements in place. In other words, the $200 tax stamp went away, but the NFA process did not. That created an obvious legal question. If the government is no longer collecting a tax on these firearms, what constitutional authority does it have to maintain regulations that were historically tied to that taxing power? That's the question that became the foundation for several lawsuits challenging the continued application of the NFA. The court issued a permanent injunction against enforcement of the challenged NFA provisions as they applied to the plaintiff and where applicable, their members, customers, and other covered parties. That is a big deal. For decades, suppressors have been subject to a unique federal regulatory system under the NFA, even after Congress eliminated the $200 tax stamp. Buyers were still required to go through the NFA registration and approval process. This ruling directly challenges that system. Does this mean you can buy a suppressor without NFA registration? No, not yet. This is probably the most important part of the entire story. The judge specifically stayed the effects of the ruling for 7 days to give the federal government time to seek relief at the appellate level. That means the ruling is a major legal victory, but not yet a green light for everyone to simply ignore the existing NFA process. Until the stay expires or the appellate court changes the situation, the current federal requirements maintain the practical reality for most suppressor buyers. If you are in the process of purchasing a suppressor, or do not assume that the Texas ruling immediately eliminates the requirement for ATF approval. If the case moves forward, to the Fifth Circuit will have an opportunity to review Judge Hendricks's decision. Depending on what happens there, the case could eventually make its way to the Supreme Court. That means the Texas decision is better viewed as a beginning of the next phase of the fight rather than the end of it, and is not the only potential path forward. The state laws could become the next big issue. There's another piece of the puzzle that could become increasingly important: state laws. Many states have laws that reference the NFA when establishing requirements for suppressor ownership. If federal NFA regulation changes, some of those state laws could become confusing, redundant, or even contradictory. South Dakota was the first state to move to deregulate at a state level to be ready for federal deregulation. Other states have since followed with their own deregulation legislation. But it is important to keep expectations in check. There is no immediate nationwide change to the suppressor buying process today. The 7-day gives the government the opportunity to appeal, and the legal fight could continue for years. For now, the smartest approach is to watch the courts, watch Congress, and keep an eye on state legislatures. The $200 suppressor tax is already gone, but now the bigger question is whether the rest of the NFA's regulatory system can survive without it. So, I don't know. What's your opinion, Gary?
Well, it's kind of wait and see at this point, obviously, to see if any appeals are filed and stuff like that. But I'm cautiously optimistic about this. It'd be great if we could just go buy a suppressor. It might actually cause me to buy my first suppressor. I don't like registering things and getting the government's permission to own them and stuff like that. And yes, I know you're still going to have to fill out a 4473. It is what it is as far as that goes. But I think it will drastically affect suppressor sales if that actually comes to pass. So we'll see.
And I did put a link in the description for this article and the final rules from the federal government. Let me say hello to Tactical Fun. I was just thinking about you today. I was going through Brass. I was thinking about Buck. I think that's... Oh, Hillbilly Up is out there. Sorry. Must have jumped in while I was reading.
Oh, there's Hillbilly. I didn't see him come in.
G-Web said the NFA is over. And cans will be made different, not designed to last for years. I think that's a good possibility. I don't know how much of that you caught, Barbecue.
I was listening while I wasn't here. They say it's a wait and see game. On the topic of, states laws, there's not much that can be done about that if this were to go through and ultimately, strike down the NFA. Your state has a crappy law regarding SBRs or silencers or, suppressors, et cetera, et cetera. That's going to be up to those people in that state to fight that on their level. Obviously, we can champion it, we can support it. If there's a local organization helping with that fight or whatever the case, we can help out that way. But I don't really think worrying about anything at the state level is worth worrying about. Really, at the end of the day, the only worry is the NFA and the federal level. And with that, when I don't want to sound as optimistic as G, not because I want to sound negative or anything. I like to tamper my expectations. But with that, when I say this, I feel like even if this doesn't quite get us to the road that we want, the NFA is holding just by strings at this point, and it's only a matter of time.
I think probably not all of it. The big challenge, because if suppressors, SBRs, SBS, if those come off the NFA, the machine guns and AOWs, any other weapons, those will be a tougher fight. Because we've heard the Supreme Court reference machine guns, not in a good light, and I think there will be a lot of resistance.
Yeah, I don't think the votes are there to get machine guns off. Likewise, there's still a tax on the machine guns. So while we can say, hey, short barrel shotguns, short barrel rifles, suppressors, you can't do it because you eliminated the tax, et cetera, et cetera. There's still a couple things lingering there with the tax. And even still, though, let's say, and it's not to say that we shouldn't go after machine guns or anything like that and try and get them off as well. But at the end of the day, we are severely hindered by the Hughes Amendment. Just because machine guns were to come off the NFA doesn't change a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of those in the sense of, just modern firearms and everything else that are being sold openly. And the ones that are, are probably going to cost you at least as much as a car. That makes purchasing those very cost prohibitive for the average person. And until we can figure out a way to eliminate the Hughes Amendment, while it'd be great to get machine guns off the NFA, I don't think it's gonna make a lot of difference for the average person.
Boom stick. Mark 6 is out there. I think for machine guns, I think the first step is to get them transferable. So to where you like post 86. I think that would be the huge step that's dismantling that part.
Well, as I finished up there, I did think of something that could eventually have a great effect on the average person. And that is, as long as machine guns are on there, they can try and regulate, quote unquote, rate increasing devices by perverting verbiage and definitions and everything else that they want to pervert. And now that I'm thinking about it, there would be a great benefit to the average person that still wouldn't really be able to afford these, in that, FRTs, binary triggers, things that they have looked at in the past, and who knows what's going to be thought of in the future. If machine guns aren't on the NFA, it's going to be really hard for them to be like, nope, that's illegal.
That's what G-Web said. The first step happened already, the triggers. I would disagree with that just because they are not classified as machine guns. So it's adjacent, but it's
that, and every trigger that is being made is supposed to go to the ATF for submission to be approved or not.
And next week, I think we will do a deep dive into the different triggers, binary triggers, super safety, the bump one. I can't think of it.
Upstock.
No. The FRTs, the fart triggers.
Oh,
It bumps apart, and that's what pushes. That's what made me think of bump. But so we'll go into how those work and the differences between them and all that. I just need to figure out. I'll probably just do kind of basic shapes, cutouts, maybe like cardboard, to show how the pieces interact and how each one is a little bit different. But Pack Rat said, I think the NFA is like a dying cockroach right now. Immediate question is if Todd Blanche is going to appeal the ruling. Would it be better? I think it would be better for him to appeal because that moves the fight on.
Yes, even like, yeah, we got the win, but at the end of the day, I want the bigger win. And being in this Fifth Circuit, I think it's extremely likely. I don't want it to stop at district court because, again, if and when one of these cases comes up in the Ninth Circuit or the Second Circuit, wherever, and that will for sure get ran up all the way to an en banc panel. Let's say it's going to happen because things are going to get ruled on in an unfavorable manner for the defendant, and then they're going to want to keep appealing, and those are going to go all the way up to an en banc panel. If this doesn't, and it stays at the district court, we never get a circuit split.
Well, and if it doesn't get appealed and it does go into effect, it goes into effect for that region, and members of like the NRA and those organizations, plus customers of PSA. Well, how does that actually work?
Exactly.
If you're outside the Fifth Circuit,
Say
because it only applies to the Fifth Circuit. So is it just members in the Fifth Circuits who are members or customers of the plaintiffs? Which is the way I would think it would work.
In this defense, I think, in its defense, in this sense, I believe anybody that's signed on as a plaintiff should be covered. Now, the states, that might be a little different, but any business, because we saw this with the 80%, things like that, where their customers would be covered. It didn't matter where in the world they were. So with PSA, Silencer Co., Silencer Shop, all those, I don't see much of an issue there. Then it becomes a matter of states' rights. The only thing I could see possibly being an issue is because they're selling these items and they're not in the Fifth Circuit, like PSA, for example, that they could run into some stuff in their jurisdictions, which then, maybe they have to go and open a store in Texas or something. So they have standing to sell them from there. But on the states, it's not uncommon for states to sign on to a lawsuit and be like, we agree with this. Does that give blanket coverage to all their citizens when a ruling goes a certain way? And I think that is going to be tough for the Fifth Circuit to be like, yep, because the Supreme Court's already said, like, no, you don't get to make nationwide rulings. You're a district court. Like, it doesn't work that way. So with that, it'd be very interesting to see. Like, they could obviously say, hey, this applies to everybody in West Virginia and, whatever other states signed on. There's 15 of them. He could say that, but at the end of the day, the Supreme Court could be like, no, you can't do that.
What do you think, Gary?
I mean, what barbecue says is pretty valid here. We just kind of have to wait and see how this all falls down. I'm still kind of waiting to see how it all shakes out, to tell you the truth. I know how I hope it shakes out, but we just don't know with these courts and everything like that. I think ultimately, and I think Barbecue mentioned this the other day, ultimately, unless this comes down to the Supreme Court or something like that, we aren't going to have anything that's nationwide blanket ruling, and probably need it, because I hate to see certain states, have these rules and some states don't have these rules and stuff like that, especially when it comes to this stuff. We're a country. We should, try to make everything apply to everybody. But if I had my wishes, a lot of things would be different. So it is the way it is for a reason. So we'll see.
If say it does make it up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court rules favorably, saying that you can't have the registry for these,
Right.
Right. Then you've still got. I think you will still end up with a fight in the states, because like Washington, suppressors and short-barreled rifles are legal, but short-barreled shotguns are not legal in Washington. And I don't think they will change that because of that ruling. And other states, I could see other states. What is it? 7 of them. California.
Yeah, there are so many facets to this. You're right. And then you get to the argument of states' rights, and stuff like that too. So,
Well, I think at the end of the day, and I will always lean this way. Second Amendment is written for the people. It's not written for the states, period. And if the Supreme Court were to step in and go, no, this isn't a states' rights issue, because they could just as easily eliminate the NFA and say this is a states' rights issue. This is up for each state to litigate. That 100% could happen. But if the Supreme Court steps in and goes, no, this is a clear violation of the Second Amendment, this is unconstitutional, states' rights don't matter because it's not a states' rights issue. It's a Constitution issue, and the rights of people are being violated, period. They don't get to go, well, our rights, your rights don't get to violate the people's rights.
and a lot of it will go down to ultimately the right of the people, quote unquote. That is this inherent to the right of the people to keep and bear arms? All these things and stuff like that. Is this, basically enacting the Second Amendment, in which case it's kind of hard to allow a state to restrict things like that. So, yeah, it'd be tough.
G23 is out there. He said the ruling says it doesn't apply to the people. It applies to the members of the organizations and the businesses only. If you reside in one of 15 states, it does not directly apply to you. But this is the case is as applied case, not facial. So it was brought to the court saying, and I messed up my wording here. So it's not, they weren't challenging the NFA being unconstitutional because it exists. They're saying that the way it's being applied, being applied to these people is unconstitutional.
It's saying because the tax was 0, the registry is unconstitutional.
And I've tried to look up, has the federal government ever used a zero tax in the past? And the only thing I could find had to do with Obamacare, and I forget what the actual name of the Obamacare is, where the penalty
Affordable Care Act.
Thank you. Affordable Care Act is, there used to be a penalty if you didn't have insurance, but they made the penalty 0. And that's different because that's a penalty rather than an upfront fee like the NFA is. So I haven't been able to find if the government can use a zero tax as a record keeping implement. And G-Webs jumped in. How's it going, G-Webs?
Fred Medlin, thanks for hosting. Thanks for the link. So I don't think it's states' rights isn't opposed to individual rights. States' rights is only a term based on what the Constitution enforces. And what is it, the 14th Amendment or something that says if it's not written in here, it's the states?
Well, the 14th, I think, is the one that said the Constitution applies to the states. That was after the slaves were freed.
It's the 10th Amendment that basically says, like, hey, if we didn't cover it here, the states get to.
The last one of the Bill of Rights.
Yes.
Like, the last thing we're saying here is if we didn't mention it here, then it's not like it's not a law. It's just that it's up to the states to deal with it. So that's where I look at states' rights. I don't look at it as states' rights versus individual rights. Like the Supreme Court or something is going to make a decision that, like, neither or with the states versus the individual. It's just whether or not the Constitution applies. So I think the states' rights is more of a term applied to if the 10th Amendment applies. Is that the way to say it?
But the thing is, with sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you were done. But
I guess I'm just clarifying that, like, if they say something is outside the realm of the Second Amendment, then it would default to the states.
Well, exactly. And that's why I said, like, we everybody thinks, like, oh, we just need a case to go to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court will just wipe out the NFA. And, like, I mentioned something that I personally never heard anybody talk about. And that's if the Supreme Court said, hey, this is not a federal issue. This is a states' rights issue, and just kicked it down to every state. And now we've got a patchwork all across the country of, can you have an SBS in this state? Yeah, you can have an SBR, but you can't have an SBS. Well, you can't have an SBS or an SBR in this state, and you can't have machine guns, but you can have an AOW perhaps in suppressor. And now there's this giant patchwork, and just like with concealed carry currently, you'd have to know what the law is in each state that you're going to be traveling to and through and everything else when you do so. But if the Supreme Court comes out and says, no, this is unconstitutional, that's where I say states' rights don't matter, because the Supreme Court said, no, this is unconstitutional.
I think we've got untold number of things that the states decide. I mean, literally everything that isn't in the first 9 amendments is up to the states to determine. So I don't see anywhere in any kind of anything that says that one of the features of the United States is that all the states will do the same thing in lockstep. I mean, it's actually the opposite of that, that we're designed to be 50 different experiments that all hang out with each other, but don't necessarily have to do whatever the other one does. So I don't see that as a gap or something, or like something that's unsolvable. I think the government or whatever is more than content to let go at the federal level and say that's not us, and then the states either ignore the issue or decide on their own, and then we as individuals. I mean, trying to think of a good example of that, but I'm just trying to think of, like, I don't know, like eggs or milk or something, like something that people have heard about that's an issue in some states and other states don't even consider it an issue. So I think we just don't pay attention to the stuff because it's not bothering us. This one is bothering us, and we haven't seen a clear, like, it's not like we're being offered, like, here's the ideal solution, let's all just work towards this and we all agree or anything. So since we have a non-effort, you know what I mean? Like, everybody likes the idea pretty much of no NFA, but the path to get there isn't established at all. And I think that's what we're dealing with. Not so much a clear black and white or cut and dry issue as much as just a lot of unknown. And I was going to use the concealed carry thing. It's the same thing. Like, we already have dealt with either concealed carry or constitutional carry, whichever lever you want, layer you want to focus on. We've lived through decades. I mean, our entire life history of, I don't know what the law is in this state concerning guns until I go there or decide, figure out, research, I guess, what the current law is. Because just because I thought it was this doesn't mean that it's still this, right? So, I mean, ever since the beginning of whenever the first gun laws were created, that gun law was here and not over there. So we had to, as a country, as an individual citizens, we had to deal with different laws wherever we go almost since the beginning. And I don't know if that's a feature or a negative. I don't think it's a negative. I guess it's a feature or something we just have to deal with, but I think it's almost a feature.
Well, I think personally it's a negative, and the reason is, back in the days that the nation was founded, the amount of people who would routinely travel from one state to another was probably very rare. But now, it's not that uncommon at all. And there are people who travel across the country every day, one state to another, maybe even from one region to another. And to basically restrict their ability to keep and bear arms just because they're traveling, I think is a problem. That's why I don't like these piecework laws that we have now. It's like, for a traveler, it's a nightmare. And even for air travelers, it's even worse, really, because you got to worry about where you land. You can legally have something when you board a plane, but can you legally have it when you get off the plane, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm all for states' rights where it makes sense. But in this case, it's a restriction on liberty, or just my opinion.
We have different speed limits as we drive. We have different
Speed limit isn't the same as the right. You have no right to do whatever speed you want. You have the right to keep and
I'm
bear
not
arms.
allowed to use that as an example of travelers having to deal with different laws in different
because it's not a right.
I don't care. It's a situation in life, though. Gizzard
All
says
right,
that
cool.
it shouldn't happen, that we have
Hold
different laws in different states. We
Hold on. Why do we have a Bill of Rights then? If states can just legislate on whatever they want and rule however they want and have this giant patchwork, why do we have a Bill of Rights? And say, if I go to New York, then they should just be able to restrict my freedom of speech. If I go to Ohio,
if you want to live in one country, why do we have states?
So, like,
why are there laws?
Answer the question. Why do we have a Bill of Rights?
We have a Bill of Rights because the country, when it was being created out of multiple states, understood that it would have to deal with both national and whatever you'd call the state level issues, and gave them some direction or some boundary.
Exactly. I'm going to say the only right that says shall not be infringed is the Second Amendment. Like, that one's clear and explicit. Gary or Foss, if one of you gentlemen would be so kind to do, because this is a problem that exists. And the problem is the Supreme Court will not define what infringed means. So if one of you gentlemen would Google what infringe meant in the 1700s and read it aloud.
This will take me a second.
I say I checked it out the other day. I was actually going to bring it up on my show. But I'm going to say this is a great time to mention it.
At the time of the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, 1791, to infringe meant to break, violate, trespass upon, or completely destroy a law, contract, or right.
So to say that having this patchwork because they want it and they want to take tout states' rights, it doesn't work. Because again, if that's the case, then none of these hold up.
I mean, states can't play with the the right to free speech and stuff like that.
But like, what if a news reporter in New York was coming to Pennsylvania because there is a explosion at a factory? The only reason I use that is because it happened over the summer. There's an explosion at a factory, and it's not super far from the state line, all that. So they come over, and the police are like, "No, you can't do that. You don't have freedom of press here. You're from New York. This is Pennsylvania." It would never happen.
Fluffy 10 millimeter Jeep guys out there. And Ron Wayne.
I put a link out there from Firearms Research Center that kind of goes into from the University of Wyoming College of Law. That it's a nice article that goes into detail as to what that meant at the time. So,
and G23, I did see your text. That's kind of the information that I had found. He sent me a text dealing with the zero tax, but I was trying to find something that didn't reference firearms at all. Yeah, that's what I wasn't able to find. Well, since you're here, G-Webs, and we had talked, you had talked a little bit out in the chat, but we can hear from you about your opinion on term limits.
Yeah, I think that's short-sighted. You take the person who who the people have the ability, the constituents have the ability to act upon by either voting or not voting for them, and then you make it so that individual, that lever in the system has a shorter reach or can only last for 2 years. Yeah, you might accomplish the goal of like scoundrels aren't going to apply for that job, but those scoundrels stop existing because you figured out a way to make them move? Or do scoundrels just look for another job in the bureaucracy that isn't dependent on a constituency's vote and then, basically sit there like a tick? I don't know. People who've never worked in the government don't pay attention to this or don't think about it, but if you think about all the worst jokes or tropes about like government workers, it's usually the person who's an asshole and lazy or a jerk who gets stuck in some job where they really can't get fired from because of some situation in the bureaucracy or the institution or whatever, and they can just do what they want and they make it horrible for everybody else. And that's one of the reasons people joke about this stuff, but that's what we would end up with if you made it where the person that we have control over with, essentially giving them their job continually or not, if you said they only have a certain amount of times period, then the only person that we have effect on is now the least powerful person. And what I would suspect would happen is they would be the ones that they're going to point fingers at every time the people that are stuck in the institution, like stuck in the bureaucracy, want to blame something. They're just going to blame whoever politician is in front of them because they know that their lifespan is 2 months or 2 years or whatever the session is, and they can continue to do whatever they want. You talk about having, what's the word, like institutional life, or there's some name for the idea of having people that have been in a position like in a committee or something for a long time. Like they understand, there's things that experience offers that inexperience can't, and that's being in somewhere for long enough to see patterns and routines and who's the jerks and who's the real players. Do we want to remove our ability to have those people on the board? Because the government still needs X amount of people to make it, to do stuff, and taking the people out that we have control over to some extent, that's just passing the buck. What it really term limits means like, I just want to be able to vote this question away, or like, I just want to not be able to think about this. That's how I look at it. Like, it's just short-sighted, and it's an easy answer to a more difficult situation that really it requires people paying attention to who they're voting for and blah, 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 like all the stuff that nobody wants to pay attention to, the responsibility of being a citizen.
Garage noises out there. Good morning. For the most part, I'll usually hear term limits come up when people are talking about politicians they don't like, rather than ineffective politicians.
That's interesting because, yeah, exactly. That's a better way to concisely say it.
Pack-Rat.
And we probably don't know at all about the politicians that are awesome and have been there for like 30 years and, you know, are integral to making the process work. Like, they just don't stand up and take applause, or nobody points a spotlight at them, right? So we're probably not even aware of how many of those are in there.
Were you saying something, Barbecue?
I was going to wait for you to say whatever Pack-Rat said.
Pack-Rat said, the more I look into the amendment, I believe all gun laws are infringements, no matter what level they are.
So I had to disappear for a few when you guys were going over the term limits. I'm glad that we were able to come back. This is one that I'm really torn on. Like, I can understand the idea and even need for term limits. But I think instead of term limits, there should be a pay cap where they just, I mean, technically there already is, but I think it's far too high. I think the mean gross income of their constituents is what they should be making. And if they're like, well, I've got to be able to afford a apartment in Washington, D.C., and this, cool. And say, so now you and, you know, 3 other congressmen split a place because you're not there full time anyways. You're there for X amount of time, then you go back home. Like, there's no reason for you to be, one, paying for this place, and then, you know, writing it off, all that fun jazz, when you're only there, what, maybe a third of the time, 2/3, you know, whatever it is. Or this might be crazy, I don't know. Build dorms for the Congress critters and senators. You know, any representative that has to be in DC, like when they're in DC, they have the ability to stay there rent free. You know, all they've got to worry about is their food.
Communism.
Right?
Well, I think the problem with that is they're the ones who would vote on it. Right now, you've got where the senators won't even let the representatives eat in their
yeah. Well, but that's one of the problems is when they want a pay raise, they get to vote on their own pay raise. When, you know, whatever it is that they want for themselves, they just have carte blanche to be like, yep, we pass this. Like, if anything, a constitutional amendment would be great. But even if it's just a bill that were to pass saying like, hey, we don't get to vote for things for ourselves. That's up to our constituents. So every election, you know, whether it's every midterm or, you know, well, I shouldn't even say every election. Whenever there is an election, if a bill like that is presented, makes it out of committee and to the floor, they have to then put it on the ballot. And their constituents get to go, no, I'm not happy with you. No pay raise. Because at the end of the day, you know, one, what do you make term limits? You know, is it 12 years for Congress and 16 or, you know, 18, 24 for Senate? You know, how many of these Congress critters after doing their time just go over to be a senator, and how many of the senators go over to be a Congress critter, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, more often they're Congress people to learn and understand the situation, the process, and all that, and then they go work for a company as a consultant so that they can
Lobbyist.
smooth the process. Well, just somebody that can, depending on what they are, right? Like so that they can navigate the bureaucracy for them.
There's that. But so it runs into this issue of what's the proper amount of time, and does it actually solve the problem? Does it solve the problem of things like insider trading? Does it solve the problem of where people don't feel like they're being listened to? And unfortunately, I don't think it would, because the large companies that quote unquote own Congress critters, and senators, and some people say judges and whatever else, they're going to continue to do that. Like, fine, our guy's gone because his term's up. Well, great. They already knew his term was coming up, so they already started throwing money at some other politician that they liked and feeding that person's campaign. They already own him before he gets in. So I don't think term limits is necessarily the answer. But with that, like, if we're not going to have term limits, and part of the issue is like the people should be able to vote for whoever they want. And I think it was G-Webs that had presented this to me on, I think it was one of my shows a long time ago. And he's like, so what if somebody that was mentally handicapped wanted to run for Congress or something? Because I think I had said, like, there needs to be some sort of competency test, or et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, I don't think so. Like, because who's really making those decisions at the end of the day? And he's like, but it's the people's right to vote for whoever they want to vote for. And I was like, well, he's not wrong. It is their right. And if that's who they want to vote for, that's who they want to vote for. So at the end of the day, that's another problem with term limits, is you're taking away the people's right to vote for who they want. But likewise, then I think a conversation would end up having to be had eventually of, is it right and just to not allow foreign-born citizens to run for president? Because again, if that's who the people want to vote for,
but we already have sub restrictions, like you have to reside in the state that you represent, you have to be at a certain minimum age and stuff like that. So, do you throw those out the windows too?
Well, you would have to have,
if you don't like the rules, then
change
you
in the
leave and go
Constitution
somewhere else.
to do that.
What'd you say?
I just said, if you have no, I don't want to have no rules. If you don't like the rules, leave. Like, go somewhere where you like the rules. You don't have to be here if you don't like it here. I mean, not you.
And unlike what Gary said, like, say there was somebody that wanted to run for Senate in Kansas, but they live in California, then that's on them to move. That's not limiting the people's rights to vote for that person. The only person that's limiting the people's rights to vote for them at that point is that person by not moving to that state to run.
I mean, who's to say that in the future some states might just decide that they want to be represented by AI? Now you're getting the robots involved. Now it's time for G-Webs to talk.
That'd be interesting, but that's a good point. Although it does say stuff like you have to be a human and you have to be in this state and that kind of shit. And you have to be this old, like you said. But that is a thing. At some point, people are going to go, why do we want a human in this job when every other state or country has robots doing their jobs and they're, flawless?
Going back to the age thing, one, I'd just like to point out to everybody earlier, Gary was like, well, no, there's plenty of people that are in their 70s and still in great mental faculties. Gary's only saying that because he's like 5 years away. Just realize he's biased. But in all seriousness,
4 years away.
And he's positioning himself for a run for president.
He is.
Yeah, for sure.
Him and Bernie. Decker Sanders,
Him and George.
Colonel Decker Sanders. I think some sort of cognition test should apply. When we're hearing about these copious amounts of Alzheimer's and dementia meds that are being shipped into the Capitol for different representatives, when Harry Reid just freezes up like a robot that needs rebooted on stage, when our own president several years ago, Biden, had done that, and it looks which let's say he did poop his pants on stage. Does that do anything to his mental faculties? Not necessarily. That just might mean like he's losing control of his bowels. Like that sucks. So while people want to point to that, I don't think that is anything to focus on because, well, I mean, for some people, their heads are up their ass. But anyways, I digress.
It's like a physical thing, not a psychological thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's historically happened in the past, even in the presidency. Like there were times that FDR was pretty much physically incapacitated, and historians agree that Eleanor Roosevelt pretty much ran the country for a while. So
that's a good possibility.
Ozzy feels slighted by barbecue.
Well, what did I do?
You're an ageist.
He said barbecue is ageist.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
About the same age.
Yeah, he's in the age bracket. That happened.
Midget with carrot cake is out there.
But no, I think some sort of cognition test. I mean, even if it's the impact test, like they give athletes pre-concussion at the beginning of a season and after they get a concussion, that would probably be a fine one because it measures their motor skills and cognition, all kinds of stuff.
Why not have if you're going to test them for their ability to do the job, why not test them on the actual issues that they'll be dealing with?
And who gets to administer the test and who ultimately makes the decision? Because there's where the seats of power lie. So once again,
because if they're
positive 5% or 80%, who comes up with the questions? Like, does the question apply to Georgia and Washington State, or is it something that only people in New York are going to know?
So one, if they're in cognitive decline, I don't think it matters about testing them on anything else that matters, because if they can't think for themselves, none of that matters at that point. They already failed. Now,
but who decides?
Yeah, so what if a bunch of people say we want crazy old?
Do I get to answer this?
No, you have to answer all of these at the same time yesterday.
Go ahead, barbecue.
Thanks. So on a federal level, let's say I think there should be a group of doctors that are gathered. They come up with a test, and that's what the test is. We don't include Fauci. That's bad. On the state level, that's up to the states to come up with their own if they even want to adopt that. On a state level, that can be up to the states. Do they adopt it? Do they not? If they do, they get to make up their own test, or they could just adopt the federal test.
When you said impact test, I was thinking they had to be able to take a punch.
Oh, that'd be great, right?
I was thinking jump out of something.
Oh, there we go. We can have them jump out of a moving van at 55 miles an hour. They got to pop back up, and once they pop back up, somebody's going to punch them. And if they drop again, they don't get to be a representative.
They got to jump back up and then vote on something, and if they vote wrong, then they're not able to work. I think there's value in age and wisdom, and I think for most people, at least, I think the general idea is that people don't get vindictive and mean and bitter typically when they get older. So having wiser, more, I don't know, like understanding people advising and creating the structure is a what do you call it? Is a advantage or like a positive thing. then think about, just to throw something else out there, the barbecue refuses to answer. Back in the olden days when they first started the country, how old did people get? Like, period, hard stop. Like, they died when they were 45. So like
Yeah.
a 30-year-old was an old person, with wisdom. So nowadays people can last on life support, way into their 80s, running around doing stuff. So I don't think somebody in their 90s who's had good health care and access to all kinds of rooms and knowledge and understanding and seen so many things happen, like, I don't think they're necessarily a disadvantage just because a couple of them are a-holes or like held up for scrutiny or mocking
Well,
or whatever.
that's not to say that just because of their age, that they should be disqualified. Again, that cognitive test, because again, the test would be designed, well, in my head, it would be designed to not just measure where they're at currently, but can you design it to where, like, you can measure how fast they're processing things. Like, are they taking a while? Are they really within their full faculties as they should be?
That suggests that being able to make a decision quickly is better or more accurate, when in reality, I think a lot of people, I don't know if more people, but I think a lot of people would acknowledge that people who pause and think and reflect before making an important decision are wiser and, put more thought into it.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying like they have to be like, hey, what's
Well, I'm just saying,
1,003
like, quick
times?
reflexes doesn't mean better, is all I'm saying. Like, it can mean
Yeah,
better if
well,
you're fighting
what I'm
or
saying
jumping out
though
of
is,
airplanes.
like, if somebody was like, what's 1,003 times 8? If they stopped for a second, like, and they didn't just go, 8,240, I don't think that would. By the way, it's 8,024.
8,024.
Yeah, let's say, since nobody called me on it.
But some people are good at mental math, others aren't. I
Yeah.
mean,
But
Being
but
good at
I'm
math
just using
doesn't
that
mean
as an
good.
example of, like, I'm not saying like they should be able to have to rattle something off like that instantly. Like, they should be able to take a little bit of time to process things like that. Like I said, it's not anything that I think would be an easy thing to come up with. But also, I'm not a doctor, and that's why I'm saying, like, you would have top medical professionals that especially deal with cognition. So neurologists, things like that, that can come up with a test and say, this is how we're going to be able to determine, is this person in a good mental state to. 'Cause at the end of the day, then it goes back to, are they in a good mental state where they can, for example, really take care of themselves? If they can't take care of themselves, how can we expect them to take care of a district or a country?
So
So somebody
let
who
me
has
be
broken leg or
devil.
somebody that's got paralyzed, they're not allowed to be a
No, because again, I'm
representative.
just talking about mental cognition.
Let me play devil's advocate here for just a minute. You don't believe we should have any kind of physical or mental requirements for the ability to possess and carry a firearm, but you're all right with having physical and mental requirements to represent the people in Congress?
No, I say, if somebody's been adjudicated mentally defective, then no guns for them. Like, that's saying like they're endangered.
Ooh.
What do you
Ooh.
mean? Like, why is that a hot take? If they're a danger to society, if they should be locked up in an institution,
Well,
because
that's different. Different deal there.
like, because if we're
And
gonna,
he
if you're
said
gonna
not
strawman me
physically.
like that, that means that anybody that has Down syndrome, or which actually I think that there's people with Down syndrome that function better than friggin' people that we would call normal. But I digress. But people that have mental handicaps and things, do we just say, here you go?
Well, you
They tend
said
to be
not
a
physical,
lot
so
funner to be around.
Can
Oh,
they vote?
100%.
Can they vote?
I
I
really
mean,
don't know. I've never thought about that.
we want to allow people the right to vote and stuff like that, regardless. So
Well, hold on.
why can't they
willing
represent?
candidate. The only thing that stops you from voting is crime, right?
Can
That's correct.
mentally handicapped individuals vote?
Yes. The only thing that
Yes,
stops
they
somebody from
can.
voting is crime.
Really? I never
Yes.
thought about it. I never thought about it.
Yes,
So
they can.
Packrat had a question, but I don't quite understand. Let me ask this: do we have the right to void the will of the people that vote into office? I don't know if he means removing somebody who was voted in because the test deemed them unfit.
I looked it up and the robots say, yes, mentally handicapped people can vote as long as they are not deemed mentally incompetent by a court. So I suppose if you're to the point where you're in an institution or under care, then you no longer vote. But I'm guessing those people aren't all that interested in voting if they're
Probably not.
detached. It
Ron
says the
Wayne said
Americans with Disabilities Act, blah, 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 ensures people with mental disabilities have the right to participate in elections if they understand the voting process.
Ron Wayne said they should be able to juggle, compete in a 3-gun match, survive a Three Stooges eye poke, moonwalk, and bounce like a bumble.
I don't know if there ever
But
been
if
a system where the people who represent had to compete. Is that? I mean, I don't know of a system of government where, you know what I mean? Like there's either the king or something that's appointed by somehow, or like, you know, there's a process or people vote. But is there a system where represent, or I guess people who are represent, or whether it be candidates are put up to compete against each other? I've never heard of something like that. I wonder if that's a valid way of doing it. So instead of being elected, we elect people to be nominated and then they compete. And maybe the, you know, what barbecue is saying, like, are you able, like a warped version of what barbecue is saying would be like, okay, instead of just a test to determine if you're able, all the people who are candidates will take this test together, compete against each other, and the winner wins. And then we don't vote, we just vote who goes into this competition. And then the one who's able to succeed in the competition becomes our representative. I mean,
like a politician Olympics.
Kinda, or like, yeah, like a ninja. I was thinking like one of them ninja.
Oh, Ninja Warrior course.
Ninja Warrior course type of thing, except in the middle of it, they're quizzed on like important technical shit or like political shit or process.
I'm just wondering, can we make it more like the show Wipeout? The Japanese version too, not the American version. The Japanese version way better.
But seriously, has there ever been a system, or is that a concept of like a political system where the people have to compete so that you always get the one who's most competent somehow?
Not in a democracy, or I know we're not a straight democracy, we're representative, but not in a democratic state. Those tend to be
More like fascists, like
warlords.
Oh, that would be true. That more like a pack type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Packrat,
I like that.
Packrat said he was referring to term limits, so overruling the will of the people who they voted for.
Yeah, because that's just an extension of the 2-year term limit. Like we already have term limits. There are 2 years for senators or whatever it is, 2 terms for senators, and then 4 terms for Congress people or something, 2 terms for the president. It would just be an extension of that. It's not like saying your vote doesn't matter after 2 years or something.
And Kanaidon said slippery slope, which for everybody that is on the chat or comes on the chat, that is a banned term. I don't like slippery slope, but in the context here, I mean, it applies. Which group of physicians sit on the board? Who's fit to be in office?
Yeah, like who decides, who judges.
Yeah. You give a lot of power to this group saying who's eligible to be in office.
Oh, the thing is, you could do it almost like a double-blind study. Just say, hey, we want, this group of doctors. So you would go and you'd look for a group of doctors, like the most respected of the respected in their fields. a ton of peer-reviewed papers, whatever, all kinds of stuff. And you get this group of doctors and sit them down. You don't tell them that they're making this test to measure the cognition of politicians or anything. You can just tell them, hey, we want you guys to come up with the best test you can that would measure the mental cognition of an individual. That's all they've got to know.
So I posed a question out there: medical doctors, or are we talking psychologists here, or psychiatrists? I mean, mental professionals or medical professionals, or a combination of the two, and the standards are completely different.
Do they do an MRI or one of those scans and determine if you got any bubbles or lumps before you can be?
It's going to be completely comprised of chiropractors.
A group of phrenologists.
Oh, there you go. Massage artists and phrenologists. They'll rub their head and
Chiropractors.
Yep. It's just a full group of chiropractors and veterinarians.
Veterinarians are super competent.
Actually, they are. Like, people don't realize they have to go to more school than a regular doctor because, like, doctors have it easy. All of their patients, for the most part, are the same. Exactly. Animals.
Well, you got like young ones and old ones and girl ones and boy ones. But yeah, fish, birds, dogs, come on.
I mean, like, every once in a while, they'll get something that's a mutant, like my mother, where her heart's on the wrong side and backwards. But that's not a joke here. That's legit. But, other than that, like, for the most part, everybody's built the same. But when it comes to animals, they're all different. Like, yeah, horses are horses, but cows aren't horses. Dogs aren't cows, so on and so forth. Like, veterinarians are incredible.
What do you call a doctor that finishes last in his class?
What?
He's still a doctor.
Oh.
It's true.
Packrat said the problem there is testing can be made to have any result desired.
Yep.
And are we talking MDs here or DOs? I mean, technically they're all doctors.
But so again, that's why I think you take the real idea of what the test is for. Even if you just told them, like, hey, we're making up this hypothetical test, or we want to just kind of have a test that can, again, just measure the cognition of an individual when it needs done. You don't ever tell them it's to measure the cognition of politicians or anything like that. You don't let on for a second that it's for a political use.
I don't think you could do that practically.
You don't?
No,
just because of the bureaucracy involved in doing stuff with the government.
You think it would get leaked, or
either it would get leaked, or just in the paperwork to bring together a committee to do this thing. The information will get out there on what's going on.
Maybe if you just said everyone, once they reach a certain age, has to take cognition tests, and then those tests just go along with your taxes and your Social Security stuff and just becomes part of your files. And then that way anybody that becomes president would already have their tests done.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think I like that.
No big deal. Just take this test. And if you fail the test, you just pay more taxes, maybe. No big deal. You can only live in certain states. Like, if you want to live in this state, you have to get this score on your test. What if you fail your test? You got to move. But you can go to one of them other states where those people that scored similar to you live.
Well, and the other thing is, like, there's a whole group of politicians that are aging out right now. Is this something that we end up having as an issue in the future where we have to worry about it? Again, like Harry Reid, Biden, Feinstein, just to name a few, where they would be in the mid conversation, or excuse me, mid speech, and just totally blank, and then an aide would have to walk out and just shuffle them off stage. Is that something that we think we'll have to worry about in the future when this next group of politicians that, the ones that are getting elected in now will most likely be there for an eternity? Or one, will medicine advance so much that we don't really have to worry about cognition in the first place? But two, is it possible that just the call for term limits and perhaps added pressure from constituents, things like that, make some of these representatives go, I'm done with this. I'm already rich. I got enough money for myself and my children to live off of for the rest of our lives, et cetera, et cetera. I'm out.
Don, I worry about the deep state entrenched government employees. Worry more about the deep state entrenched government employees than the elected officials. They have the ability to control the process.
Oh yeah, bureaucrats.
We touched on that a little bit earlier, but I don't. I've heard people say they like that being there because it's promotes continuity in the government, because there's people that are knowing what's going on, even if you get a brand new senator who has never served, that they need to learn the process. Well, there's somebody there already that kind of knows the process and can help them do their job. And then other people who don't like that because they view them as like a tick that are dug in and controlling what's going on.
Well, and that's one of the things that, like Brooke has mentioned, is great. We get somebody new elected to Congress. Their first year, they're sitting there just learning, and they're taking in everything that they can from colleagues and anybody that they might have inherited from the last person that was in their position. Do they keep the same office people? Do they bring in new, et cetera, et cetera? So they're spending their first year just trying to learn everything. And then it's like, by the way, you have to fight for your job. And people wonder why there's not that much done by Congress.
Grim Reaper Reviews is out there. I think that would be an awesome interview for Gary to interview Rebecca Schmoe. I think that would be a good interview where she could give insight on the behind the scenes.
I could possibly make that happen.
You should. I believe I have one of those, but that was pre-political aspirations.
I mean, right now, I don't know that she'd agree to it. She's in midst of re-election campaigns.
You can help promote her campaign.
Only problem is I'm technically not in her district. I'm not a constituent.
Oh.
Even then, let's say you're somebody that has close to 5,000 subs now on YouTube. That could get shares, things like that. You got subs out there on the Facebook, all that fun jazz. You got plenty of places that your tentacles can reach and possibly reach people in her district and or people that are going to share it if they really enjoy the interview and whatnot, and have it possibly get to people in her district.
New York Outcast. In a few years, Chinese robots will be being put in as politicians won't glitch anymore. Just don't mind the person with the remote. Kanai-dan, I kind of like it when lawmaking goes slowly. I kind of do too.
I like gridlock. We have enough laws. Unless they're voting on something to give back more freedom, we've got enough laws.
Well, hopefully G-Webs comes back before too long here and we can do have a gun quiz that we can do.
All answers are 44 Magnum or 1911.
I don't think they were any of those questions. It's only about, I think, 16 questions, 3 categories: history, pop culture, and then just general knowledge, which they probably could have been put in other categories, but I didn't feel like it.
So
Sounds
then
like
after this,
Trivial
there's a bracket.
Pursuit.
No pie pieces though.
Ah,
I don't know, if you have pie, you can go get your own pie piece. That's fine.
pie.
So what's on the bracket after the quiz?
No bracket. We're doing a quiz instead of the bracket.
What?
We'll wait a little bit.
Where'd he go?
I know he just said be right back. I don't know if he had to take the dogs out. I don't know. Was there anything else in the news? Oh, I did see in Pennsylvania there was a gun shop that they had installed flock cameras in their parking lot back in, it was 22 or 23.
Really?
Because some of the local gun shops had been robbed. So they put the flock cameras in. And very recently, somebody, I don't know if it was TikTok, Instagram, one of the social medias, did a clip. They saw it and we're like, hey, look at these at the gun shop. Everybody that comes to this gun shop, they're going to be recorded. And the gun shop decided, well, we don't want those cameras there anymore. I think there still are some cameras, but they had multiple cameras in their parking lot.
Oh, there was one that I saw. I don't remember where. It might have been in Pennsylvania, but there was a gun range, an outdoor range that had flock cameras put up to get you coming in and going out.
This might be the same story. They took down, I think, most of the cameras, but I think, because I saw an interview with I don't know if it was the owner, someone from the gun shop. They took down some of the cameras. They had asked Flock to take them down, and Flock said, we have a contract.
Oops, somebody cut them down.
Well, they removed them from the pole, and they have them sitting inside. But I think the way it was, he kind of worded it, there were still some cameras up. But I think probably the ones that looked at the entrance, the parking lot entrance, were the ones they removed.
And the thing was, like, for the gun range, because the one I saw said range, it didn't say anything about a shop. But either way, the point they made was like, great. So here's this system that's just cataloging and storing all these different things on people. He's like, and now when you go to the gun range, they know each and every car and possibly your facial recognition, all that fun jazz of who is a firearms owner now.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's cities that have decided they don't want the flock cameras anymore, and we'll tell flock we don't want the cameras anymore, and flock will leave them up, and the city can't legally take them down because they're flock property.
I feel like the city should be able to just tax them to oblivion then, but that's just me. I think part of the reason that a lot of these cities are going, we don't want them, is because across the nation there are police officers dropping like flies because they're being caught literally using the block system to stop people.
There have been stories that have come out lately about that. The last one I saw was a couple days ago. It was a female officer.
Yep.
That was stalking her ex-boyfriend, ex-husband, whatever, ex.
I'm trying to remember what state it was in. Might have been Tennessee or Georgia. I don't remember, but something like 17 deputies were let go because of that exact reason. I was like, what is going on in that department in the first place that that many were doing that? Like, that's disgusting.
Well, if G Webs makes it back, then he can join in.
Oh, sorry. I was on a phone call. An unexpected phone. I'm back now.
I didn't know if you had to take the dogs out or something.
No, I just got a phone call from somebody I could not take the phone call.
We are going to do a gun quiz.
Oh, okay.
Firearms related quiz.
Oh, did I miss a flock conversation?
Yep.
Yeah, it's filling time. We're talking about flock.
I can't tell you. I mean, I knew about flock, but after I think about 2,200 miles going through Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, Missouri, and some others, Iowa, and some other states, there's a shit ton of flock cameras. You know who has the most flock cameras in this room? Gizzard. There's like a flock camera at every single intersection where two highways met in Kansas, as far as I can tell.
Not quite, but my county has a few. That is true.
Oh, I mean all of Kansas. I gotta go. I'll be back.
Oh, okay.
I see it as insidious. But so, well, when G-Webs gets back, he can join back in. So how we're going to do this, I think, because there's a delay between us on the chat and the people in the side chat, I'll ask the question. There'll be some quiz music. It's about 10, 12 seconds. And then you guys can answer. That's the chat, people out in the side chat, as soon as they hear the question, they can go ahead and put their answers in. They don't have to wait.
Is there a prize?
No.
Oh.
Bragging rights.
Oh, okay.
I it's just difficult because if you know people are going to Google. I don't want to give a prize if you're winning by Googling. No, I want to see what you know. Some of these questions are kind of hard. There's some that are easy. I think each section has one multiple choice. So we'll start out with history. Let me share the screen here. So in the year 1600, what country was the largest producer of firearms?
Brazil.
Just producers of firearms. And anybody can answer. We don't have to go in order.
France.
Gizzard says France. Was that barbecue?
I said Brazil.
Brazil?
Oh, it's never mind. It's in the 1600s. My bad. Italy.
Ozzy said, I can't really highlight because it's going to mess me up here, but Ozzy said Italy. G-Web said Italy. The answer is Japan.
Wow.
When the Dutch introduced the matchlock into Japan, they became the largest producer of matchlock rifles for a short period. It's like I forget the end of the 1500s into 1600. So this is multiple choice. What was the firing rate of the M3 grease gun? Was it A, 450 rounds per minute, B, 750 rounds per minute, or C, 1,050 rounds per minute? It's 450, 750, or 1050? What do you guys think?
C.
I'm going to
Barbecue
guess
says-
A.
Gary says A. G-Webs said 750. Ron Wayne said 1,050. Ozzy said 750. Vulcan Rumble said 450. G23 said 750. Pack Rat said 450. The answer is 450. Oops. Let me go to the next slide. I made all these slides so I can show the answer. 450 rounds per minute.
Yay.
Surprisingly slow. I saw a video with Jerry Mikulik shooting one, and he braces for it, and then as he's firing, it's just like tuk 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 tuk, and he looks at the camera. Tuk 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 tuk. I would still like to have one. So, what year was the National Rifle Association founded? What year was the National Rifle Association founded? You guys can just answer. You don't have to wait for me to call on you.
1913.
Maybe I should, so we don't all talk together. So, what'd you say, Gary?
1913. That's just a guess.
1930? Barbecue?
1867.
1867. G23 says 1899. Wait to see. We'll give it a couple seconds, see if anybody else throws out an answer. Ozzy said 1964. The answer is 1871.
Oh wow, that's pretty close.
This one I didn't know. I was thinking it was, like 1920s.
What did Barbecue say?
1867.
Well, you were the closest without going over, so.
That's true. Price is right rules.
I didn't say that. So, what country was the first to adopt the FN-FAL rifle? First country to adopt the FN-FAL. I forget what year it was now.
Israel.
Gary says Israel.
Sweden.
Sweden. Just seeing if there's any answers thrown out there in the chat. Canada. Canada was the first country to adopt the FN-FAL.
I did not realize that was a hockey stick. I thought it was a gun. Who knew?
It's not a real country.
Blame Canada. So what was the first breech loading rifle to use a bolt action? First breech loading rifle to use a bolt action. This is one of the tougher ones. Gizzard?
I have no idea.
Barbecue?
Bolt action, huh? I want to say a Mauser of some sort. I am 100% sure I'm wrong, though, so.
G23 said Colt. G-Web says these are tough. This one I had no clue. It was the I'm not sure on the pronunciation because I think it's Austrian or one of those kind of German type. Dreiser needle rifle.
That would be my guess on the pronunciation, yes.
Ron Wayne said it's foreign. Yes, it is foreign. So pop culture now. In the James Bond books, what handgun did James Bond carry? Was it, A, the Walther Model 9, B, the Astra Cub, or C, a Beretta M418? Walther Model 9, Astra Cub, or Beretta M418? Gizzard.
I'm going to guess B.
B, the Astra Cub. Barbecue.
A.
A, the Walther Model 9. G-Webs also said the Walther. Ozzy said the Beretta. G23 said the Astra Cub. It was the Beretta M418. It's 25 ACP. So what film used firearms? Trying to remember if it sold last year. It is 24 or 25, I think. What film used firearms sold for $1,057,500? What film used firearm sold for over $1 million? Gizzard.
I'm just guessing here. The 44 Magnum used by Dirty Harry.
Dirty Harry's 44 Magnum. Barbecue.
That was my guess.
You also said, what is it, Model 27?
29.
29. G23 said John Wick. I don't think John Wick sold at auction. Ron Wayne said Winchester 73. The answer is Han Solo's DL-44 blaster sold for over $1 million at auction.
That's not even a real gun.
Well, it's a film used firearm. What's okay? Here's what song starts in 1814. We took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. Gary might get this one. 1814, we took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. Gary.
I believe it's called the Battle of New Orleans.
Battle of New Orleans. Barbecue.
I'm going with what Gary said. I know the song, but I can't think of the name of it. So I'm going to go with what Gary said.
It was the Battle of New Orleans by Johnny Horton. Ron Wayne said Thunderstruck. G-Web said the Battle of New Orleans. It's a great song. So, what firearm did Elvis give President Nixon in 1970? What firearm did Elvis give President Nixon in 1970? Gizzard.
I don't know exactly. I believe it was a custom revolver. That's all I can remember.
Custom revolver. Barbecue.
Colt 1911 chambered in 38 Super.
Colt 1911 chambered in 38 Super. G23 said 1911. Ron Wayne said Colt Peacemaker. G Webs said Colt 1911. It was a World War II commemorative Colt 1911.
Wow.
The display box even showed what theaters that gun served in. I think it was like Egypt. And I think it listed 3 different areas. I don't recall off the top of my head.
I would just like to add, I knew it wasn't 38 Super. I was just being a smartass with that.
Well, I figured. What gun did Axel Foley carry in the movie Beverly Hills Cop? What gun did Axel Foley carry in the movie Beverly Hills Cop? Gizzard.
He wasn't allowed to carry one.
Oh, Gary's thinking that's a trick question. Barbecue.
Trying to think. It, like in the very first movie, I feel like he started off with a revolver. Because at one point he's not allowed to carry one, but he does start off with one. I'm going to go with a Smith & Wesson Model 10.
Smith & Wesson Model 10. Ron Wayne said High Point C9. G23 said Beretta 92. Vulcan Rumble, Browning High Power. G-Web said something a hat. Pack Rats Addict said High Power. It was a Browning High Power. I think he has it in one of the movie posters. Him standing with his arms crossed in the Letterman's jacket. He's holding a Browning High Power. So, general knowledge. How many firearms were sold in the U.S. in 1925? 2025. How many firearms were sold in the U.S. in 2025? Gizzard.
7 million.
7 million. Barbecue.
2025, I'm going to guess 23,470,000.
23,000,000
And one.
470,000.
And one.
And one. G23 said over 2 million. Answer is 15.5 million guns were sold in 2025.
Thank God we're not playing Price is Right rules.
I was under, so
But I was still closer.
doesn't matter.
Should have just voted one gun up more than Gary. That's Price's Rights rule.
It is. But you said we weren't playing Price is Right rules. You didn't
Well,
say
we're
that.
not.
See?
I'm just saying that would be. What is the best-selling civilian handgun of all time in the U.S.? Best-selling civilian handgun of all time in the U.S.
Glock. Oh, how are we answering?
Verbally?
Boss was going around the room calling on us one at a time because we keep talking out loud at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, it just to keep it orderly, I have to call on people. So Gizzard,
Glock 19.
Glock 19, Barbecue,
Smith & Wesson Model 10.
Smith & Wesson Model 10, G-Webs.
I could see the Model 10, but I'm going to go with the Glock just because of numbers.
Which Glock?
Oh, 19.
Glock 19. G23 said clock. Ozzy said 1911. Ron Wayne said P320. Vulcan Rumble said Glock.
See, nowadays I'd call 1911 a platform. It's like saying AR.
Yeah. I thought about that, and I was like, it almost seems like a cop-out just to go 1911. But I didn't want to say the word that you guys said. That's why I went with the Model 10.
It was the Glock 19.
Oh, God.
All time, I could see the 10 being a contender. Like, I'd like to see what the top 10 are.
Number 2, I think, was a Colt 1911.
Oh, okay.
And
that makes sense because of how many surplus ones there are.
The SIG P365, I'd be curious where it falls.
P365 was up there.
Really?
I think the P320 is still kind of up there. I don't remember exactly what order, but I think the top 2 were the Glock and the Colt.
So too.
So what is the most produced firearm of all time in the world? The most produced firearm of all time in the world. Gizzard.
1911.
1911. Barbecue.
Most produced all time in the world. That's tough. Just so many options, because at the same time, like, do you go back and say, just a general flintlock? Is it looking for a specific make and model?
Well, I will say the answers were provided by Google. Some of them I did double check. Some of them I didn't because I didn't feel like putting the effort into it. So if you disagree with any of these answers, please email Google and let them know.
Okay. So that did not help at all, other than that Google sucks. I'm going to go with flintlock.
Flintlock. G-Webs?
AR-15. It used to be the AK-47.
AR-15. G23 said AR. Vulcan Rumble said AK-47. Packrat said AR. According to Google, it is still the AK-47. And that includes all its variants.
Right. I've heard that before. It makes sense. The Cold, because the Cold War and all that. But I just can't believe it anymore because they're just not. I mean, they're making it, but nowhere near as much as the AR.
Yeah. I'm blame it on Google if it's wrong. What percentage of guns in the U.S. are semi-automatic? A, 17%, B, 26%, or C, 48%? A percentage of guns in the U.S. that are semi-automatic, 17%, 26%, 48%. Gizzard.
I'm going with 48%.
48%. Barbecue.
I'm going to go with 48%.
48%. G-Webs.
I'd be more comfortable with like a 38 to 42, but I'll go out of these numbers, I'll go with 48.
48%. G23 said 48%. Ozzy said 48%. Ron Wayne is asking 26%. Vulcan Rumble, 28%. The answer is 17%.
Yeah, no way. No way. No.
No.
That's according to the Googles. 17%.
I'm writing them an email. That's sternly
Let's
worded. This.
Just look at the percentage of semi-auto handguns sold to any single shots or revolvers or anything alone. Then you look at, rifles sold, what percentage of rifles being sold are semi-auto compared to a bolt action or a lever action or the occasional pump action, et cetera, et cetera. Like I have trouble with that one. You should have put the disclaimer on this one first.
Well, the disclaimer goes for all of them because some of them I did double check, and some of them I didn't because I was getting tired of making these. I went through to do these graphics probably 4 or 5 times, changing, finding grammatical errors, spelling errors. Then I decided to highlight the answers. So I had to remake these over and over and over, and I kind of got tired of checking them. So some of them I just went straight with the Google answer. Google said 17. So the answer is 17.
That sounds like an anti-gun answer.
According to the Pew Research Center, what percentage of non-gun owning males in the U.S. can see themselves owning a gun in the future?
Come on. It's not even multiple choice. We have to come up with it.
I know. I thought about doing a multiple choice on this one, but I didn't. So what percentage of non-gun owning males can see themselves owning a gun in the future? Gizzard.
20%.
20%. Barbecue.
21%.
41%. G
21%.
21%. Sorry. G Webs.
Can I say 21.5%?
Yes.
No, I'll say 30.
30%. G23 said 3%. Ron Wayne said 1.
Like, talk about trying to put yourself in the shoes of somebody that you can't put yourself in the shoes of.
I know, but it's partly what do you know, and partly what are we going to learn? 56%.
Whoa.
That's a pretty awesome number. I just went with 21 because, mess with Gary.
So I do have a bonus question that's not firearms related. In what 3-year span was it legal to mail children through the U.S. mail? What 3-year span was it legal to mail children through the U.S. mail? You can give me I will accept a single year or the 3-year span. Gizzard.
I'm going to guess 1898 to 1901.
1898 to 1901. Barbecue.
1827 to 1830.
1827 to 1830. G-Webs.
The first year of the post office through the third year of the post office.
First 3 years. Ron Wayne said 1950 to 53. G23 said 2007 to 2010. It was 1913 and 1915. The U.S. mail changed the weight limit on first class mail. I think it was on the first class mail. So, and there was no language saying you couldn't mail a human. I forget what the weight limit was, but it was high enough where people could mail a child. And there were a few people that actually did mail children. Because I think they upped the weight limit to like 48 pounds or something like that. 35 pounds.
I feel sorry for the kids if it had been in the 1800s when they would have been traveling Pony Express. That would have been kind of a rough trip.
Yeah, stuffed in a saddlebag. Yeah, so
I've seen the pictures and it would just be like a kid standing there with like a stamp post or pinned to their shirt, right? Like they weren't like in a box or anything.
I don't think they were packaged, but the one story I know that I read it, they mailed them like 10 miles. But I don't know. Was that fun? Were the questions too hard?
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
So
it gives a whole new meaning to it. I got to pick up the kid.
They got a big. canceled stamp on them. Gee,
Get
well,
them back, return to sender. Crap.
Postage due. Yeah, COD.
what you got coming up, G-Webs?
Nothing. I guess videos from that goals. Thanks for hosting.
Barbecue?
I guess probably a show on Thursday. That's it. Thanks for the invite.
Gizzard.
Well, I recently posted a knife review on my channel, so check that out. I also have an upcoming video on Console Vault. They sent me a Console Vault to install in my car. Plus, I have a live stream on Monday nights, Foul Territory, 9 o'clock p.m. Central. So thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. Ron 2A Matters is out there. I should have maybe tomorrow morning video on a scope, the scope that I have on my 4570. I think the 4570 video I have to put off for a little bit. But I can do the review of the scope that I put on it. And should have a chat next Sunday. We're doing Sunday chats, not Saturday chats. Next Saturday, Sunday. Next Sunday, 9 a.m. Pacific. So I appreciate everybody that was out there in the side chat participating. You guys are the ones that make it fun. These guys are okay, but it's you guys out there. You're what really matter. And I hope everybody has a good rest of Saturday. Sunday, it's Sunday, not Saturday. I hope everyone has a good rest of the Sunday. I'll talk to you later.